So, you didn't understand Interstellar. How embarrassing. You're alright. It's a complicated film with layers of real-world science mixed with a mind-bending fictional narrative. And perhaps you're just here because you understood it fully and just wanted some confirmation. Look, either way, I'm going to break it down. Bear in mind there are some ambiguous elements in the film where I've attempted to fill in the blanks. But if you believe I've missed something important or am just flat out wrong, please comment below. Bear in mind that there's a good chance that you'll probably end up in some kind of furious and futile argument with some anonymous internet commentator. So yeah, bear that in mind. Alright, let's start with the plans to save humanity as devised by Michael Caine. Not the actor, Michael Caine, but the character he was playing. Though I'd imagine if Michael Caine had to devise a plan to save the Earth, it'd be pretty solid. Okay, so plan A was to harness fifth dimensional physics and use gravity in order to launch a space station or stations big enough to transport the entirety of Earth's population to safety. You know, away from all the dirt and the dying crops and a presumably angry redneck Casey Affleck, who's just shaking his fist angrily as everyone leaves. Michael Caine, however, believed that this method was infeasible, but floated the idea in order to fund his actual plan, Plan B, to shoot a bunch of embryos into space in order to start a new colony from scratch. The first generation would be raised by the astronauts, the second would raise the third, and so on. The embryos were necessary in order to create genetic diversity and to avoid astronaut inbreeding that could result in a hills have eyes situation or something akin to British aristocracy. The method of transportation to reach distant planets would come from a wormhole that allows people to travel across vast distances of space that would normally take thousands of years. That was placed there by a future version of Earth's civilization who had a full grasp of fifth dimensional physics. As the movie not so subtly explains, in order for it to work, you have to imagine that everything exists on a 2D plane, which I guess is similar to that terrifying theory of existence that everything is actually a 2D holographic projection. Don't think about that. Let's just move on. The universe then folds in on itself, connecting two vastly distant points, allowing an object, in our case acting tour de force Matthew McConaughey, to pass through almost instantaneously. Theoretically, it is possible. That being said, I've never done it, so I can't personally confirm it. Having sent through 13 astronauts 10 years prior, the idea was to determine which of the 13 worlds they visited could be made habitable. Only 3 survived, the first of which visited a planet that's home to about 3 feet of water covering most of its surface, and waves that make the perfect storm wave look like the waves from the movie Surf's Up. Probably, I haven't seen it. Because of the position of that planet in relation to the black hole, time there is distorted, resulting in 1 hour on that planet's surface to be slightly more than 7 years of regular Earth time. Which is why when Cooper and Anne Hathaway's character return to orbit, 23 years have passed. Due to the interference of Matt Damon's astronaut, who was one of the original 13, who lied claiming his world was habitable, and the revelation that Plan A was never actually meant to be feasible, Cooper and Anne Hathaway decide to jettison the excess weight of the ship in order to slingshot off the black hole so that they could reach the last known habitable planet, the world where Anne Hathaway's boyfriend would be waiting. Cooper jettisons himself and his Tetris block robot friend into the black hole in order to reduce the weight of the ship, so this final trip can be made possible. And this is where things get super weird. Like, weirder than a walking, talking Tetris block weird. Inside the black hole, at the center, is a pocket where the entirety of Cooper's daughter's life exists at the same time. But the only part that's visible is her childhood bedroom. Cooper, trapped in this bizarre kaleidoscope nightmare world, discovers he's able to communicate through time with the use of gravity. That is, to push through copies of Sandra Bullock's space adventure hit Gravity, now available on Blu-ray, so his daughter can know what an overrated film from 2013 looks like. No, not really, but he is able to communicate through the only known thing to transcend space and time, gravity. This means he's able to spell out the message stay by pushing books off the wall, line the floors with dust to convey the coordinates of NASA's headquarters, which allows him to find NASA in the first place, and most importantly, transmit the data acquired inside the black hole using Morse code into the second hand of his old watch, allowing the possibility of using gravity to launch a ship big enough to transport Earth's entire population to safety. Basically, this black hole was designed specifically for him and his daughter by people from the future as a means to communicate and save the human race using big rocket ships. That, of course, was Michael Caine's Plan A, but made possible with better science and love or something. I'm sure they said that love had something to do with it. I don't know. When Cooper is able to successfully transmit this information, he's jettisoned out on our side of the universe where nearly 100 years have passed in our time. His daughter, now like super old, is reunited with her father, who's barely aged at all. Much like real life Matthew McConaughey. She, although happy to see him, tells him to go, implying that she's made peace with his absence, and she makes clear she'd rather spend her dying moments with her new and extended family. He then leaves her, knowing that she's all grown up, that he doesn't have a place in her future family, and that she just doesn't need him anymore. And the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon. Little boy blue in the... Okay. Where's he going, though? Well, he's going to visit Anne Hathaway. Her boyfriend, it turns out, died in circumstances not made clear. Possibly time got him, or something else, like, I don't know, maybe a big rock fell on him. Either way, he's dead, leaving her to set up the colony herself. Or perhaps to just inhabit the colony her boyfriend had already begun to set up. It's a sad party of one for good old astronaut Anne Hathaway. She'd just fill her days raising some kids, growing that weird bowl cut out. I don't know. But then presumably after the credits, McConaughey turns up and then it's some kind of sweet party with naked bongo drumming. And that's it. That is Interstellar explained. Man, I can't believe you didn't understand Interstellar. How embarrassing. Thanks everyone, and don't forget, new videos here every Thursday and Sunday. And if you want, you can check out this week's episode of my podcast, The Weekly Planet. That's out Monday. We'll cover this movie in all sorts of depth and, a bunch of other stuff. Last week's episode was actually on the best films of Christopher Nolan, so if you want to check that out, I will link that below. But what was your favorite element from Interstellar? I'd love to know. You can leave your thoughts here or via my Twitter and Facebook pages, both ending in Mr. Sunday Movies, if you have anything you'd like to share about that. Thanks everyone. Take care.